Well, it's April 1889, and I'm sitting in what used to be my dark room, but is still my sort of video camera photography room down in Sandpiper in Eustis, Florida. And I'm going to start on something that I've been saying that I was going to do for a long while, and that is put a lot of photographs on videotape. I've been taking photographs most of my adult life, and I've got all kinds of them, and I've also picked up quite a few from family, and I want to put these on videotape so there will be a permanent record of them somewhere and they won't get lost. And when I get the videotape done, I will then make copies for whoever wants them and see if anybody is really interested. I'll tell you who I am first, though, because I don't know how long this is going to last, and how many years from now this may be looked at by somebody who doesn't really know who this is. And to introduce myself, my name is John Andrew Leifheit. I'm the son of Herman and Sophia Leifheit, born in Newburgh, New York on June 29th, 1920. And I was named after my maternal grandfather, whose name was John Andrew Frick. And John Andrew Frick and his wife Margaret came over to the United States somewhere in the mid-1800s, I would assume, because John Andrew Frick was a first sergeant in the Union Army in the Civil War. And I can't remember him really because I think he died before I was born in 1920. But I understood that he lived to be a fairly old gentleman. I do remember my grandmother Frick, my mother's mother. She was a little old German lady who lived in the sort of upstairs apartment in our house on Water Street in Newburgh with my Aunt Liz, who was her maiden daughter, my mother's sister. My father's family was named Frederick. My father's father was Frederick, and his mother, I think, was Margaret, too. I'm not sure of that. I had 3 sisters and 2 brothers. And they were born in this order: Margaret, and then Fred, then Dorothy, then Herman, then Helen, and lastly me. At the present time, my brother Fred lives about 4 or 5 miles from me over here in Shangri-La, which is a mobile home park in Florida. My brother Herman is dead, and my sister Dorothy is dead, and my sister Helen lives in Cornwall. At the present time, of course, I'm going on 69 years old, and my brother Fred is going on 79. So it's about time we got some of this down on tape. As far as my life is concerned, I graduated from Newburgh High School and then worked for a year and went to New Paltz State Teachers College, which was in New Paltz, New York, for a 4-year term. We were the first class in 1942 to graduate with a degree. And in 1942, when I graduated, of course, I went immediately into the Army. I was inducted in September 1942, and I served for 3 years, a little over 3 years, with part of that time in Italy with the 15th Air Force. When I got back to the United States in October of 1945, I went up to New Paltz to visit friends and got a job in the State Teachers College up there in the practice school as a practice teacher and a demonstration teacher, and I worked there for the balance of that year, and then came down to a little place called Banksville, which was on the border between New York and Connecticut, and I taught in a 2-room country school there and did that for 2 years. The end of the first year, I had met Alma Schramm at her sister Dorothy's wedding, and Dorothy married my cousin Howard, who was, let's see, Howard was Henry's son, and Henry was my father's brother. Okay, so Howard was my cousin, and Dorothy and he got married, and I was invited down to the wedding, and I met Alma, and Alma and I were married in 1947. And we lived in Armonk, New York, in a rented house, and then moved up to Bedford to a little apartment, and finally up to Route 22, where my son John and my son Chris were born. Johnny and Chris were born in Bedford, New York. Well, Johnny actually was born in Mineola, because Alma was down there while I was working at the Camp Orange YMCA camp. But we lived on Route 22 in Bedford, New York. And Chris was born there, and after that we moved to a rented house on High Street in Katona, New York. And the kids sort of grew up on High Street in Katona. And in 1951, we built a house on Ridge Road, which was way in the back of Katona on 1.5 acres of land, right back in the middle of the woods. And that was a fun house to build and to live in. Unfortunately, Alma became ill and died of cancer of the breast in 1957. And this was a real blow, and Johnny and Chris went down to Maryland to live, and I remarried after a year or two, a girl by the name of Jean, who was a nurse in Bedford, and that marriage lasted for about 9 years, and I got a divorce from her. And lived by myself, and of course by that time the kids had grown up and were off doing their thing. Johnny had joined the Air Force, and Chris was out in California somewhere. And it was at that time that Dorothy had decided to marry or to divorce Howard because I don't know, I won't even go into the reasons, but she became a divorcee, and she and I had always liked each other. There was no question about that, and knew each other well. So Dorothy and I were married. And again, misfortune undertook the two of us, and Dorothy died of cancer of the pancreas in 1957. And I stayed a bachelor for a couple of years and finally married again. So I've had 4 wives, and I'm living with the 4th one, Peggy, right down here in Florida and having a hell of a good time. And that's about enough for me. I am, as I said, the father of John Jr., who has 2 children, Alexis and Marshall, and lives in Rochester, Minnesota right now and is running a TV station out there. And Christopher Hunt, who is married to Diane, has 2 children, Merthin and Gareth. And Chris is a surveyor up in Saranac Lake, New York, and enjoying himself up there. I feel very fortunate that in all the problems that I've had in my life and the tragedies that have occurred, I have 2 marvelous sons and 4 great-grandchildren. And I sort of wish that I had had a chance, or my grandfather had had a chance to sit down and talk to me the way I'm trying to talk to you people now and to show you what my life has been like. I think the age of videotape and video cameras is sort of a miracle, and I don't want to pass up the opportunity of putting myself on tape and telling who I am, what I'm doing, and showing you through photographs perhaps a little bit of the life here in the United States, what we've done with it, and just sort of putting it down for posterity so somebody 50 years from now can look at this and say, oh yeah, I heard about that guy. Is that who that is? Well, okay, here we go. I'm going to put him on tape, and I will put a voiceover on him so that we can identify the pictures as they come up, and I hope you enjoy them. This is a picture of my grandfather Frick and my grandmother Frick and their 3 daughters, Sophie, Elizabeth, and Lena. This is a picture. Let's see, this is Grandpa Lifeit down in Brooklyn somewhere, Fred Lifeit. And I don't know who the boy is, but it's probably one of his sons. Fred Lifeit was a tailor. And this is my father in his class somewhere. I don't know what age he might have been, probably about 9 or 10 years old. The X marks him in the front row, 3rd from the left. And this is a little closer picture of that. I don't know what he's looking at there, but he's probably watching somebody off to the left. And he looks pretty neat in his shirt. This is another picture of my grandfather and grandmother. My father is sitting in the front. No, I guess that's Uncle Henry in the front. My father's in the back, and 2 sisters, Carolyn and Frances. And here's a bicycle built for 2. The back of this picture said that it was taken down in Sheepshead Bay, and that's my grandfather Lifeit and my grandmother Lifeit. This was taken at Gettysburg. My grandfather Frick, who is my mother's father, is the man standing down beside the ladder. I don't know where my grandmother is in this picture, or even if she's here, but that's a picture of my grandfather Frick. I don't know when this was taken, but it must have been in the early 1900s. Grandpa was in the Civil War, served in quite a few of the battles. This is my father, Herman Otto Leifheit. I love that spit, Carol. Quite a dapper gentleman. And here's a picture of him on one of his horses. He was quite a horseman. Rode well, had horses when he was a youngster. Actually worked riding the circuit around with the trotters. And this is another picture of him. He had pretty nice clothes in those days, didn't he? Cutaways. This is my grandfather Frick and his wife standing in front of the house on 312 Water Street in Newburgh with their 3 daughters. Can't tell which one is my mother. This is my mother. I don't know where this was taken, probably in one of the early homes that my father and she had up on Liberty Street, and that's a stove that she's standing next to, one of those old cast iron stoves they used to heat. This is my grandfather and grandmother Frick in back of the house on 312 Water Street with probably a grandchild. I don't know who that might be. One of my sisters, perhaps. This is my grandfather Leifheit, who used to come up from Brooklyn to visit us. And I don't know who the little boy is. I don't think it was me. It's probably my brother Herman. But this was on the porch in the back of Water Street. And here's a picture of 4 of the cronies. I don't know where this was, but it was quite a while ago in the old war derbies, as good gentlemen did. And it looked like my father had the uniform of a policeman on. He did a lot of odd things in his life, and this might have been one of the things that he did. This is a picture of one of his first carriages. He started a little parcel delivery service in Newburgh, and I think this was taken up by St. Mary's Convent, and it's a picture of his carriage and one of his horses. And he gradually, of course, graduated to a truck. This is one of the early models. Some of the gentlemen down on Smith Street, where he kept this truck in a garage down there, a barn where he used to keep his horses. I guess they put the truck in it. This is a little later model now with my father standing behind it. And I think this must have been taken on Broadway in Newburgh. And the sign on the truck says Leifheit's Motor Service, Parcel and Baggage Express, Newburgh, New York. I never knew these trucks. This was before my time, but my brother Fred says that he worked on them as a young boy with my father. It's a picture of, I think it must be Herman and Helen, or Herman and Dorothy. It looks more like Dorothy, I guess. One of these traveling photographers came around with a pony and put the kids on it. This is my mother. I don't know when this was taken. She was middle-aged probably, or approaching middle age. My father was a trolley car conductor apparently in Yonkers, New York. At least that's what I heard. And this is a picture of him with his uniform on. This is a painting on silk that was done by an artist of my mother, and it now hangs in Barbara Waters' house. My brother Herman got it from the attic in 312 and had it for a long while, and apparently Barbara got it when he died. So it's my mother and father in later years with the little dog Inky. I don't know where the picture was taken, but this is a picture of the 2 of them.
My father on the right and his brother